Okay.
Right, so what we're going to do today, we're going to look at those block buddies on the board there. You're going to need some tools and equipment, but you can share these. I haven't got enough for everybody, all right? But what we can do, we'll have a tenon saw or a back saw. It's got a hard, straight back on it, okay? A square, a tri-square there for marking lines square and perpendicular to an edge. I've got a steel rule, and most importantly, I've got a pencil. If you haven't brought your pencils, there's some on my desk. We're going to start off looking at the head and the body out of the bigger square material. And what we can do first of all, you notice that there's a really rough edge on the end of my material. I want to square that off, okay? So take your square. What angle is that in there? A right angle, or how many degrees? 90 degrees, lovely. We can put the stock of the square tight up against that edge, and we can mark it with a pencil. I'll mark it on two faces, on two edges, right? So that you've got a line that's perpendicular to that edge. It makes it square, all right? Now, what we want to do is we want to decide how long we want to make it. And if you're talking about it being square, you need to make it the same size all the way around for the head. So if you look at the board very quickly, the head, the length across there is going to be the same length as the height there, okay? And the depth there. It's going to be a square, okay? So what we can do is measure that. That's roughly 30 millimeters, it's 32 millimeters. So what I'll do is I will place my ruler on the end, 32 millimeters, where I've just marked my line, and mark the end of the ruler. This ruler is different to the ones that you would have because it starts at 0. All right, there's no safety edge on it, not like the plastic ones. Okay, there are some metal ones in there that are ridged. They've got a safety edge on them. Don't use those. Use these ones. They start at 0. So again, I'm putting the measurement that I want on the end of the line, roughly 32 millimeters, and making a little mark. I am not then taking my ruler and trying to draw that line straight, because what I'll end up with is a line that is not perpendicular to that edge. I take my square and I will mark that there, and I will mark that there, okay? So when I'm cutting, I can see the top and all the way through the line, and that's really important for you guys, okay? Now, the main thing here is that I've left a gap on that edge. One, because it's been pre-cut and it's not square. And two, because if I cut on that line, by the time I sand it, it's smaller than what I need it to be. So you never cut on a line. You always cut on the waist side of the line, okay? Before we get into cutting, this is a tenon saw. The teeth on this are offset. So one tooth would point one way, one tooth would point another way, okay? It's a tenon saw or a back saw. And it's designed for cutting flat, short, not very deep material, okay? It's not like a panel saw or rip saw where you're cutting through sheet material. It'll only cut that much depth, okay? And you keep it flat. You don't angle it for a simple reason I'll show you now. This contraption, this lump of wood here, is a bench hook. It's used with my vise. I tighten it up and put it in the vise to cut on, protect my benches. All right? So we don't cut on a bench, and we don't just wedge it in a vise and cut. Okay? Now, if you are right-handed, you want the gap of the bench hook to be on the right. I've labelled some of them up. If you are left-handed, you want the gap to be on the left. And I'll show you this now. I'm right-handed, so the gap is going to be on the left on this one. So I'm going to try and cut. I can't hold that, I can't grip it. And if I'm cutting with my left hand, I'm using that side there. All right? If I'm left-handed and I cut with the saw in my left hand, I've got to hold it there. I'm going to cut my wrist off. Right? It's no good. I can't, and I don't cut over a gap, over a void. Look. All right? So if you're right-handed, gap on the right, clamp your work up, clamp your bench hook up, sorry, and then you're ready to cut. You push your bit of work up against the stock or the stopper in the bench hook, okay, and it supports your work for you. You can push firmly up against that. My feet are shoulder width apart, and I've got my saw in like a pistol grip, okay? So I'm looking straight down the saw. I'm not angling the saw left or right, okay? And I'm making sure that my saw blade strokes are parallel with that line. Right? Not on the line, I'm coming away from the line. 1 or 2 little backstrokes, and you can see I've started that cut there. Keeping your work flat, and then steady, solid motion, right? Don't force your way through your work. Don't go mad. As I'm cutting, I'm keeping the saw blade straight, vertical. I'm not angling it left or right, and I'm not angling it left or right that way. I'm keeping it straight, parallel to that edge. So as I'm cutting, you can see I'm keeping the saw blade and the saw cut as straight as possible. Now, as I'm coming to the end, listen, it changes sound. And it sort of tells you that it's coming towards the end. So don't force the saw through the work at this point. If your saw is jamming up, it means you're turning it left or right. Okay? So slow, steady motions towards the end. Otherwise, you will have a lot of breakage on the back and you'll snap the work, which is another reason why we don't cut on a line. All right? When you get to that stage there, that is fine. I will stop you and I will show you sanding. What you should have is a gap that you're going to sand off, your line, your material, and then a gap that you're going to sand off. Bench hook, tenon saw, ruler, pencil, and your material. You're going to have to share material until I can cut some more now. Okay? Any questions?